So, Laverne, welcome back. Thank you for coming.
You're
How
welcome.
are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good, good. I like your color scheme.
You know, I
Yeah.
try.
Yay. All right. So, last time we met, we talked about your daughter. You gave her a task to do. Um, she didn't do it in the way you wanted her to do it. Um, we talked about you being disappointed and that you also saw that disappointed look in her eyes, not just in her eyes but in her posture and her the body language. You said that something you never wanted to do with your child or children was to have them experience parental disappointment because you have experienced that. So the previous segment we talked about recognizing, so you were able to recognize this interaction. You recognize the thoughts, you recognize the interactions, the mindsets, and the emotions. In this segment, we're going to talk about understanding. Understanding. This is rumor time in real time, and we're understanding some of the thoughts, interactions, mindsets, and emotions that are related to your story that you shared. So I just want to do a little teaching here. Understand in the rumor time process means to know more details, to dig deeper, to go to the root, get to the root level, the causal level, the etiology, how something works, right? So, and it is aligned with self-awareness skills. So recognize is self-awareness, but that's where we list things, right? We admit, we identify, we acknowledge. That is also aligned with self-awareness. Understand is going deeper. It's self awareness, but going deeper down to the roots. Tell us a little bit more about the beginnings of that disappointed look you saw in your daughter's eyes and the physical posture of disappointment. Help us understand where that began for you.
I don't do the understanding part of rumor time as often as I do the recognizing part. But at the end of our previous conversation, I told you that I recognized feeling of disappointment because I saw that in myself. And I don't remember seeing that as a child with my parents, but as an adult, when my religious views started to diverge from my parents' religious views, that's when I really began to sense that they thought they had done a terrible job raising me because I didn't align anymore with their religious views. And that was and continues to be difficult.
That's the beginning of when you saw an experience and experience your parents feeling disappointed in you. And so, do you recall that emotion anytime earlier in your development?
I don't recall. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. I just know that I was always, because my father is a pastor and
Mhm.
my mother was a school teacher in the same religion. So they were both very prominent leaders in our religion. And so it was important for them that their children met very strict standards.
Mhm.
And I don't remember being that I was disappointing them because back then when I was a child, I just remember that I worked really hard to maintain their standards.
Okay.
So I didn't think I was a disappointment because I was always striving to behave the way that they wanted me to behave because I knew there was a lot riding on that.
Right. So let me ask you, were you conscious as a child growing up that you were working hard to meet their standards?
Well, you're asking me to remember something from 40 years ago. So I don't remember what I felt at the time. What I know is that I was aware that it was important that we met their standards.
Right. So you were
I
conscious.
don't remember how hard I was striving to meet it, but it
Right.
was clear that I needed to meet it.
Right. So that was a conscious and a very tangible thing, the fabric of your family dynamics, that you have to meet a certain standard. It may not have been said, but you knew that this was an expectation. Come back now to the story with Simone and her feeling disappointment and sharing that she seems to never be able to meet your standards. So your interaction with her really originated, was informed by the standards that were set for you way back, because that's kind of your worldview, right? There are standards that I had to meet, and by golly, my child is going to have to meet those standards. Give me some more insight. What are you thinking right now? Or what are you feeling right now?
My thoughts are, yeah, we have to have standards. I need Simone to measure up to those standards. And when she doesn't, that's a problem. But now that I'm thinking about living with my parents and how they raised me, they also had standards that they wanted me to meet. But it was so crushing back then. But I think it's so deeply ingrained in me that I'm willing to watch my child go through constantly feeling like she's disappointing me if that means that my standards are being met.
Do you think you might be willing now to manage those differently?
I recognize how unproductive it is. When
Okay.
I see my child turn her back to me and mumble under her breath, I recognize that as so relationship depleting.
Right.
And so, yeah, I would like to be able to take 2 steps back before I'm in that position and do something else, right? Before she's now walking away. I want an interaction where I can allow her, give her the opportunity to meet my standards without the overlay of I'm a disappointment to my mother.
But the only way that can happen, Laverne, is doing what we're doing right now. Because prior to now, I don't know if you were conscious that this is what was happening. This whole transfer of, oh my gosh, my child is experiencing what I experienced, and I don't know how to stop it before it starts. And the way to stop it before it starts is doing what we're doing now, which is rumerizing and going to the root of it. So I think what I encourage you to do is to be a little bit more gentle with yourself and be a little bit more forgiving of yourself, because that too harks back to this standard and approval and making sure you do everything right. And so when you start to be more kind and be more gentle and be more forgiving with yourself, that's going to flow out to Simone.
You know, I've done a lot of work with myself to not be wedded to all these standards. You know, I don't live my life anymore in this realm with my parents. I don't live my life according to their standards. But here I am still holding on to these standards and imposing them in an unproductive way on my child. So it's not funny, but it's kind of comical. It's kind of ironic, you know.
Yes, I know. Isn't it though? It's kind of ironic, but it's never too late to get to a space of consciousness, and it's never too late to rumorize and do things in a more productive way. Okay, welcome, welcome. My name is Dr. Yvonne Marie Laria, and we are doing the Rumertime in real time. And I have with me
Shaw Bailey, and I have one daughter, Simone Bailey.
Hi, and I'm Kalisha Purcell Charles, and I am a social worker practicing in Grenada.
Welcome. Thank you, ladies. So today we're going to continue with the Laverne's story. Okay, Laverne's story. This is an instructional video showing individuals how to rumorize. And we've covered recognize, we've done understand, and now we're going to be doing manage. So you need to watch the first 2 videos before you can get to this one. And that's the same process you would need to do to rumorize. You cannot manage until you recognize and understand. In the Rumertime process, manage means to control, to handle, to address, to treat. It is aligned with the self-management skills and relationship management skills. And so I'll share with you the definitions of self-management and relationship management skills that we use in the Rumertime process. Self-management is the ability to use your awareness of your time, which is an acronym for thoughts, interactions, mindsets, and emotions, to help you choose what you're going to say and do in order to positively or in a helpful way or productive way direct your behavior. Okay, so self-management is your ability, now that you're aware, now that you've listed and assessed your story and your time, you've understood, you've dug deeper, you want to now use the same awareness of your time, thoughts, interactions, mindsets, and emotions to choose what you want to say and how you want to be, right? You're being and you're doing and you're saying, so that you can positively direct how you're going to show up, how you're going to behave. All right. So that's self management skills. Let's look at relationship management skills now. It is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own thoughts, interactions, mindsets, emotions, and also those of others. Influence, because you can't manage other people, right? You can influence. And so we want you to be able to recognize, understand, manage, and influence your emotions and those of others, your thoughts. You want to be able to inspire people. You want to be able to have your relationship in such a way that it encourages, it uplifts, it inspires individuals to change in ways that are positive, to find balance intrapersonally and interpersonally. And so the outcome is to create bonds, really strong bonds with and amongst others, so that everyone within your relationship sphere feels heard, understood, valued, feel like they are supported and that they matter. Okay, so that's the outcome. That's what we want to be able to do as we have gone through recognizing, understanding, and now we're focusing on management.
As we recap on Laverne and her relationship with her daughter, she shared with us in the first two segments, the first two plots, how she has had some challenges with her daughter. But as she began to recognize and understand the relationship more, this is her opportunity now to share with us how she has begun to really manage some of those challenges, how she's able to manage her thoughts, her interactions, her mindset, her emotions as it relates to the relationship with her and her daughter. Laverne, can you share with us how you have shifted your thoughts and your interactions and your mindsets and your emotions in terms of developing or working towards a different relationship or a better relationship with Simone?
So in the first interaction, so we had two interactions. She cleaned the wall twice. And the first interaction, I was just yelling at her. And the second interaction, I did the same thing, but that's when she turned away and mumbled under her breath. And it was in that moment that I remembered the first interaction.
Mhm.
I was saying to myself, there's a little self-talk going on. Do you remember how she reacted the last time? Is that how you want this to go down again? And at that moment, the answer was no. And so that's when I shifted to asking her to turn around, inviting her really to tell me what she was thinking instead of holding that to herself.
Mhm.
And then hoping that I would remain in a listening mode and not get myself all worked up again.
So, what I hear you saying is in those two interactions, self talk, being able to recognize the interactions from the first scenario and using self talk to adjust your interactions in the second scenario was one of your ways of basically that self management that spilled into relationship management. You first have to be able to manage self.
You're right. I mean, you have to manage self because composure is like the first skill. You know, that if you don't compose yourself, no other skill is going to happen. Your ability to recognize and shift. And obviously, if you shift your thoughts from being harmful to being helpful, then interactions will shift.
Exactly.
Right? So therefore, how she was probably mumbled under her breath and walked away. Now, when you change the way that you interact with her, when you change your thoughts, that change your interactions, and therefore she changed her interactions with you. So therefore, there's some sort of conversation, there's communication happening. It may not be ideal or perfect way, but it has definitely opened up an opportunity for you guys to be able to have a more managing relationship.
How do you see Simone? Do you see her as along the developmental stage? Where do you see her? How do you assess her?
I think that whatever she is, she should be more.
So she should be more is what you're verbalizing. And probably your nonverbal is also telling her she's not enough. Now, if you're verbalizing she should be more and your nonverbal is showing that she's not enough, then there is the remedy for destruction. There is where you're telling her that her input in her life doesn't matter. So there's the conflict, right? And then there's there's her as a young child, a young person is saying, when I'm around you, I don't feel safe. I don't know if I'm loved because you're not hearing me. You're not listening to me. You care about what you want. I want you to care about what I want. Listen to me. Be there for me, right? I think that is what's going on. And as long as you don't really get to the root and recognize and understand what her needs are, right? You really cannot manage, right? And that's why recognize and understand is so crucial in managing, because if you don't get to the root of not just Simone, because we go back to self-awareness, if you don't get to the root of you and your challenges and your mindsets, like really dig deep, right? Because this is not about Simone.
No.
This is about you, right? And Simone is entangled in all of this because you don't know how to let go some of your old mindsets, some of the things that people, your family have downloaded and you've uploaded, right? So to be able to really manage, you really have to get to the root in order to be able to see where she's coming from, because it's almost like when it comes to what you think, there is like shutters, like you're not seeing anything but what you want to see. You want her. And again, I think that when I hear you as a mom, you're coming from a good place. You want your child to have certain skills. You want her to be safe. You want her to grow up in a society where she's strong and she can cope with whatever challenges society presents to her. But she's saying, I'm hearing you. She's listening. But you want her to respond how you want her to respond. And she already is saying, I am strong because I'm not doing what you tell me to do. She's really standing up, just not in your way. Right? So this just brings it back to being able to rumorize, being able to dig, being able to really forget the trunk and the leaves and the branches, but really get down to the root, right? And once you hit that root, once you figure out what's going on in there, then you're able to like realize, hey, this is how I manage. This is how this tree will continue to grow. Because now I can feed it all these essential elements and manage all of that because I know what's going on.
And one of the things in the Rumertime process that we talk a lot about is that at the root, okay, behind every behavior is a belief, and behind every belief is a thought. So thoughts are the roots or the foundation of interactions. They're at the foundation of, or the building blocks of mindsets and also emotions. We also believe that emotions have no intellect and they are directly related and respond to one's thoughts. So you change your thoughts and you change your interaction. You change your thoughts and you change your mindsets, because mindsets are recurring, persistent thoughts that we have. Mindsets are made up of thoughts. It's like grapes. Each thought is a grape, and a cluster of grapes is a mindset. And so Laverne was able to change her thinking through her self-thought, her self-talk, right? She was able to take control of her interactions by talking herself down from that situation.
And Laverne, did you see the shift in her when you shifted?
Because when she turned around, you know, it's almost like my invitation to her to say out loud what she needed to say was her recognizing that her thoughts mattered. What she had to say mattered.
Mm-hmm.
So when she turned around, she had the confidence to say, I don't like that you just seem like you always point out the things that I'm doing wrong, but you don't talk about the things that I'm doing right, because you didn't even say that I did a better job of cleaning the step. You only said again that the sides of the walls were not clean.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that my invitation to her gave her confidence
Mm-hmm.
to tell me what she was feeling. And it's important to me that she does that. I need to know that.
It's kind of have shifted to, I feel safe.
I feel safe.
I feel safe. I can share how I feel and not be ridiculed. I can say how I feel and have someone still listen and hear and communicate with me.
Mm-hmm. And so, as we talked about earlier in the definition of relationship management skills, the outcome, the desired outcome is to do what? To create bonds so that individuals could feel what? Heard, understood, valued, and supported. And I think at that point, Simone was invited. One of the ways that Laverne managed that relationship was, even though you may have had a different attitude or mindset, but what was shared, what was verbalized was, I want to hear you. I don't just want to see you, but I want to hear you, because what you have to say is valuable, is important. And yes, it does build confidence, but I think it builds a whole lot of other social emotional assets or social capital for her.
That's what I want to learn. I want to learn how to have standards, but when Simone doesn't meet them, that I talk about them in a way that connects us rather than disconnects us.
Right.
That's really what I'm trying to learn here in this manage part.
To be able to give her own values and beliefs and all of that the same weight as yours. Being able to recognize that she's a human being and she has her own thoughts, all of that. And it's okay that she's different from you. And I think that you being able to continue to recognize and understand all of that would continue to allow you and her to manage this relationship in a helpful way.
Starting off from a position of connecting as opposed to a position of confronting.
And I think that in terms of connecting instead of confronting. And one of a helpful way in terms of connecting is just being present. Not going into that conversation with you and Simone with your own old mindsets. Like, it's almost like leave your old mindsets at the door, right? And be able to really embrace what she has to say, because as we say, every piece matters. Everything that she has to say is, it makes up that relationship. It's not just what you bring to the table, but what she brings to the table.
How would she do that, Kalisha? Give us one way of Laverne being present and not having that mindset.
First of all, having a choice, you can shift your thoughts, to be able to say, okay, I'm about to have a conversation with her, and I have to be able to leave my own thoughts and my own mindsets behind me. Like, those are mine. Being able to take a deep breath, right? And say, okay, I am going into this conversation and my focus is what she has to say. So from the minute you start that conversation, from the minute you go towards having that conversation, consciously leaving those old thoughts, those old mindsets, like leaving them behind. Say, hey, I'm putting you on the shelf. I'm about to go have a conversation with my child.
Another thing that I think you can do, Laverne, in terms of managing self and by extension relationship, is maybe lighten up, smile and laugh more with Simone. Remember, she's a kid. She is not grown. She is exploring life. She wants to try new things. Just she's not at a stage where if she doesn't follow the standards, it would be detrimental to her safety, well-being, and social emotional wellness.
Well, I think what I hear Dr. Laria saying is that approaching Simone in a more playful manner,
Yes.
productive than if this is a professional scene.
Hmm.
This is not a serious situation here. We need to play. And we know that when we play, we get a better response.
Hmm.
Our outcome is a happier outcome when we're able to show up, be present, and have a bit of play with our children.
Hmm.
That's just the reality of it.
And play is the language of children.
Mhm.
That's the language,
And
right?
it's still a language that works for adults. When we're playful, things just seems a lot lighter.